Coming up on iOS today, Rosemary, Orchard, and I are ready, and we want you to be ready too. It's time to get prepared with, well, lots of emergency preparedness options on iOS. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 645, recorded Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. iOS personal safety and emergency SOS. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by electric e-bikes. Discover the local area or experience the freedom of the great outdoors with fun, fast, and foldable electric e-bikes. Learn more about the Expedition Cargo e-bike and all the other sweet models Lectric has to offer by visiting lectricebikes.com. Welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePod OS, watchOS, iPad OS, and OS, and OS, and OS. It's all of the platforms, the software platforms that Apple has on offer. We love to talk about them here on iOS Today. We love to help you out there make sure that you are making the most of those various Apple devices you have. And so to do that, we on this show try to find a topic every week that can help you better understand your device, better use your devices, and have more fun. In some instances. I am one of the hosts of this show, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Rosemary. Today, we have a great topic planned. And in fact, Rosemary, you sent a little screenshot and said, hey, maybe we should cover this this week. And I looked and I said, oh, absolutely. Because in my area right now, it doesn't rain too frequently. And it has been raining quite a bit over the past, month or so, particularly it goes on and it's if the faucet just keeps running for about a week. We've had an atmospheric river and other things, other water-based, I think some of those terms are really goofy, but anyway, it's all this stuff that means that we're getting a lot of rain. And in a place where you don't normally get a lot of rain and you suddenly get a lot of rain, the infrastructure isn't prepared necessarily for that amount of rain. And so bad things happen. We had a problem with a levee. There are all these issues with flooding and with all sorts of stuff going on. And so there have been some times where we have had near state of emergencies issued. And in some cases, cities are dealing with the emergency caused by these floods. So all of that is to say, I'm very familiar with a lot of these features because I know a lot of people in this area are trying to be prepared in case something like that happens. So today we're talking about all sorts of ways to prepare yourself. I'm curious, Rosemary, what inspired you to put forth this topic in the first place? Everything's okay, right?
Oh, yeah, everything's great over here. But as we've been going through doing spring cleaning, we talked about physical spring cleaning and digital spring cleaning. I realized I had a very minor incident actually yesterday where I trapped my finger in a door. Don't worry, folks, I'm totally fine. Not even got a plaster on anymore. But I did, pop along to the local minor injuries unit. And one of the things they asked me was the information for my next of kin still up to date? And I thought, oh, you know what? I should double check that. And everything is up to date and I've made sure everything's fine. But I also got my parents to update that and check that and thought, you know what, this is, one of those things that we don't want to think about, but it's the sort of thing that we should be updating on a regular basis and just making sure that everything's fine there. Just like those emergency contacts in the back of your passport, they're supposed to be filled out and they're supposed to be up to date. Well, if they're not, this is a good time to go and check on them as we may be getting into the season for traveling and going around the world.
Absolutely. So this first feature, this legacy contact feature, I think is incredibly important. And this is something, I don't care how old you are, where you live, what you do, who you are, whether you go skydiving or you don't go skydiving. it is a good idea to set up a legacy contact. So a legacy contact is a feature that allows someone who you assign, or some ones who you assign, to be able to access the data in your account after your death. This is a feature that I have set up, despite, some people be like, oh yeah, this is, these are, you write your will when you're older, you set up all of this stuff whenever you're older and presumably closer to death. No, I think anyone at any time should do this. Legacy contacts are, it started in iOS 15.2 and macOS 12.1, the ability to add a legacy contact. So what happens is you essentially are telling a contact, or a couple of contacts, hey, you are a trusted individual who, under the circumstance of my death, are able to access information that I have stored with my Apple ID. Now, you get to choose what information you want to include in your legacy contact access. It can be photos, messages, notes, files, apps you've downloaded, device backups, movies, music, books, or subscriptions, and keychain data is not able to be accessed by your legacy contact. So I want to repeat that. Keychain data is not able to be accessed by your legacy contact using this method. So if you use iCloud Keychain, then you need to make sure that your family would, in the event of your death, have access to your iPhone passcode or your Mac's login information, so that they are able to access that keychain data to be able to get into your accounts. I use a third-party password manager, and so that has its own separate little emergency kit that people around me know where to find that emergency kit along with legacy contacts. Now, I went through the process of setting this up, and it's very easy to do. You essentially go into that main Apple ID settings page. So you tap on settings, you see that Apple ID contact at the top. And then from there, you go into password and security. And then there's an option for legacy contact. After you add it, of course, you authenticate saying, yes, I'm me. And then you can choose which legacy contact you want to. Now, if you are part of a family, an iCloud family, then you are able to choose one of those legacy contacts right there from the list. If you're not, then you choose a contact individually using a phone number or an email address. And then you have two options. You can send an access key via message to the person, and it saves that access key on their device. So not only does it just show up in messages, it also will save it to their device, meaning that they are, from that point on, able to be that legacy contact. And then you can also print out an access key. So I printed out my access key, and it comes out on a big piece of paper. It's got a QR code at the top. It's got the name of the person, the actual access key itself, and a bit more information. And then what ends up happening is, upon your death, you can use this access key along with the death certificate together to be able to access the information. It says, when access is approved, your legacy contact receives a special Apple ID that they can set up and use to access your account. Your Apple ID and password will no longer work, and activation lock is removed on any devices that use your Apple ID. So if you also want the various devices that you've purchased to be able to be, given to family members, or however you want to do it, this is a great way to make sure that happens, because it'll undo that activation lock on all of the devices that you have. They can be then, used by your family or whatever. Importantly, Legacy Contact has access to your data for a limited time. It's 3 years from when the first legacy account request is approved. Then your account is permanently deleted. So to be clear, they are able to get into the account with a special Apple ID and pull everything from there. The idea is that you go in, you take the data that's there, and you move it to somewhere else. And then that account is completely removed, completely deleted 3 years after that first approval is put in place. So yeah, it's very simple to set up a legacy contact. And I like that there are the two options of both printing and just sending the access key directly. And as long as you and your family member, or whomever it happens to be that is your legacy contact, has the data up to date, or has the operating system up to date, then that message version will work. If not, then go ahead and print it out. And then the other reason why I print it out is because it's just good for me to have it all part of kind of my estate planning folio, so to speak, that has all of the other information in it.
Yeah. I definitely recommend when you're going through setting this up, printing out a copy and sticking it in, the important documents folder where people are going to go and look if they're going to need any kind of documents for whatever it is. Just because this way they can find, your birth certificate and access to your Apple ID and stuff all in one place. And, you can also add some helpful instructions there on, like, what is this thing and why do I need to do this and why do I care about this anyway? So that, they don't accidentally, especially if you're the person who manages your family, as far as Apple family goes, the last thing you want is for everybody to lose all of their app purchases and everything whilst they're already dealing with something else difficult.
Now, you mentioned, or we mentioned, of course, the legacy contact. It's then what happens in the event of someone's passing? Well, there are two options. You can request it right on a device, or you can go to a special page on Apple's website. We, of course, will have links to these different pages in the show notes, which is digital-legacy.apple.com. There, you are able to request access, use the special key, and do it that way. But again, you can do it right on the device. Basically, if you become the legacy contact of someone else, when you go into that legacy contact area, you will see that you are that person's legacy contact, and then you will be able to request from that page to be able to gain access just from whatever device you happen to have in front of you. So that's the easier way to do it. But yes, you can do it online using the digital legacy page that Apple has set up.
Yes. Yeah. And it is important to note that if you do have a friend or family member who has not set up legacy contacts, then in certain countries, there is the ability to still get access to their Apple ID. In the US and some other locales, you can do it with a court order. And in some other places, France, Germany, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, alternative documentation and processes are also accepted. So obviously, this is location dependent to an extent. But if you need access to somebody's information so that you can get things sorted for them, then there are ways to do that. But it's worth setting it up in advance so that you can do that. And I kind of feel like that ties in really well, Mikah, with the medical ID on your iPhone, because if we start with thinking, okay, so something happens. For example, Rose falls off an e-scooter like I did last time I was at WWDC. Now, fortunately, I was fine. I didn't hit my head. It was a broken ankle and it could have been, much worse. But my phone offered to call the emergency services on my behalf. And if it had done that, they would probably have checked my medical ID to see who to get in touch with, including, like next of kin, if I had any allergies, my height and weight, and things like that. And this is information that you can set up in the Health app on your iPhone. And then this is available on the lock screen of your device without unlocking your phone. You don't need a passcode to be able to access this. So once your phone is locked, you can actually, if you try and swipe to unlock it and then it doesn't work, so at the moment it's looking for my face, then it comes up with this emergency option in the bottom left. And then it will give you the option to either make an emergency call or see an emergency ID. Now, folks who are wondering why I'm waving my phone at the screen, that's because I don't want to accidentally reveal all the contact information for my friends and family
Right.
members. But you can have that there. You can list medications that you take on a regular basis. You can list any medical conditions you might have, and other things like your primary language, which, especially if you're traveling, may be useful so that people don't attempt to talk to you in whatever language it is that is spoken locally rather than a language that you do speak. So, this is definitely something that is worth going through and updating. And you can add emergency contacts in here. They do not need to be your legacy contacts, though. So, for example, if you're going on a trip with some folks, it may be worth updating your emergency contacts in the Health app before that trip. And then when you come back, so that, the people who are actually with you who would need to be contacted in case of an emergency whilst on the trip are the ones who get called should anything happen, though hopefully nothing will.
Yes, indeed. We hope that nothing does happen. Now, another important reason to set up those emergency contacts is for a feature that has been part of iOS for quite some time. And that is, I think it's any phone that's an iPhone 8 or newer is able to use these features. And essentially, what happens is you are able to contact emergency services very quickly. And when you do so, your emergency contacts that you set up in your medical ID are contacted in the event of an emergency. And what happens is those contacts that you set up will receive a message saying that you have called emergency services, and it will also include the current location when it sends that message. So there are multiple ways to access emergency SOS. And depending on where you are, there are different settings that you have to set up, because in China, on the China mainland, you can choose between the police, fire, or ambulance. And here in the US, it just calls emergency services in general. And you have some different options whenever you access this emergency SOS screen. There's emergency call, there's medical ID, and then of course you can also use it to just power off your phone. But on an iPhone 8 or later, you press and hold the side button and one of the volume buttons, and until that emergency SOS slider appears. When you drag that over, then it will call emergency services. But that's not the only way to do it. You can also just hold down the side button and the volume button instead of dragging the slider, and it will then call automatically. On an iPhone 7 or earlier, you have to rapidly press the side or top button 5 times. So, of course, on those older iPhones, you've got the button on the top, and you just have to press it 5 times quickly, and then you drag over to be able to access emergency services. So, again, you have a choice between sliding over to access emergency services, or if you're you're in a situation where you are trying to contact emergency services without being seen that you're doing so, that's where holding down the button is the way to do it. You will get a reminder every 4 hours to that lets you know, hey, you are sharing your emergency location right now. So you can, if you're out of the emergency now, stop sharing it with your contacts. And then if you do accidentally contact emergency services, and somehow you've been able to press those buttons and hold them down or whatever, you can hit stop or end to stop calling emergency services. So it's easy to turn that on and turn it off. And last but not least, I want to say you've got some different options in Emergency SOS. So when you set up this feature, you can choose exactly how you activate it. So I'm going to switch over here. There's call, withhold, and release. What that does is says if you continuously hold the side button and either volume button, a countdown begins and an alarm sounds. After the countdown, if you release the buttons, iPhone will call emergency services. Then there's the option to rapidly press the side button 5 times, and then a countdown begins and an alarm sounds. When the countdown ends, iPhone will call emergency services. And then this is a newer feature called Call Quietly. And what that does is it will stop it will not make out loud the sounds letting you know that you are trying to call emergency services. So again, if you're trying to do it discreetly, Call Quietly is that feature that you want to have on. And then of course, for newer devices that feature crash detection, it can automatically call emergency services using your iPhone or your Apple Watch.
Yes. And something else that I should take a moment to mention as well here is fall detection on watchOS is not automatically enabled unless I believe you're 60 or over. So if, like me, you can be a little bit of a klutz and you perhaps think, maybe fall detection would be a good idea, you should definitely open up the settings for your Apple Watch and enable that fall detection there so that you can have that emergency SOS feature with it automatically calling if you do not respond to disable it as well.
All right. I think it's about time to take a quick break before we come back with more emergency preparedness and just overall safety preparedness features. So let us take a quick break so I can tell you about a very cool new sponsor here on iOS Today. It's electric e-bikes. It's like electric, but without the E, because the E goes in front of bikes. So they took that E, they put it in front of bikes, electric e-bikes. Anyway, you might think an e-bike isn't the smartest way to transport something, but I've got news for you. It is, because of the all-new Expedition by Lectric. And you've got to see this. It's so cool. It is a cargo e-bike that's designed to haul your belongings so you can enjoy the ride no matter what you're packing, even an extra passenger. The Expedition Cargo e-bike is there to carry it all. So we got to check these out. Leo is there dropping a box onto the electric e-bike. He's got boxes on boxes on boxes strapped to the back. He pops on his helmet, sits on the bike, and gets rolling. And I got to tell you, this thing, this Expedition electric cargo e-bike it's got so much torque. It's got so much power. It's kind of incredible how much fun it is to ride around, whether you've got stuff on the back or not. And I mean, that thing is zippy. It's responsive. It feels like so much fun. And I just want to drive it around the city. And even you see Leo going over some bumps in the video. I have to tell you, there were a few times when I was riding on these that I was going over these bumps specifically to just have fun getting to ride this thing. You know, you ride a bike and it's a means of transportation for some people, a means of exercise for some people. This is not only a means of exercise and transportation, but a means of enjoyment, because man, that wind gets whipping through your hair. And look, here we go. Burke is carrying the cargo. Oh no, he drops most of the boxes. But what's great is that while they were on the cargo e-bike, that Expedition, it was fine. But it's not just that one. You can see Leo taking out a smaller electric e-bike that he was able to fold up and store inside of his Mustang Mach-E and then pull out and get rolling right there on it. These are incredible e-bikes. That Expedition is designed to make taking cargo easier. With a carrying capacity of 450 pounds, you'll be able to bring more gear along for the ride. You can reach up to 150 miles on a single charge with its double battery setup. And it's not just for individuals. You can carry passengers, including the kids. They have some attachments that you can use to bring a kid along on the bike. Now you can see Leo and myself riding around on the electric e-bikes. He's on the Expedition. I am on the smaller one, and oh man, I had so much fun. You can check out the full lineup of accessible rides from electric e-bikes. That can be quick store trips you're wanting to take to outdoor adventures. Any situation, electric e-bikes will transform how you get around. Electric costs way less than the competition, with quality feature-packed models financed as low as $133 per month. And here's what you get. You get a powerful removable battery and a bright LCD display. It was kind of cool seeing this display in front of me that had all of the information about how fast I was moving, how many miles you're moving along. There's 7-speed gearing, 5 levels of pedal assist to power your ride. So you can, just barely have an assist, or you can really zip along, and you can lower your gas costs, reduce your carbon footprint with that. And by the way, make it your own. Electric e-bikes are customizable and adjustable to fit your lifestyle. They're foldable and ship free, fully assembled. You can join more than 250,000 dedicated riders on the road so far. 250,000 other electric e-bikers. You can see there on the right, my bike has the light on. Yeah, it's got this front headlight that you can use. You can turn on and get biking. And I love how adjustable these e-bikes are. So the handle and the positioning, all of it can be adjusted so that it's just how you like it. Make sure that it fits you specifically. And just like that guy standing up on that electric e-bike, I was doing a lot of that too. It was just fun. It's been a while since I've biked. And so I just had so much fun riding around on these things. It's, I've got to take one of the two we've got to the city and try it out there. So, one might disappear from the studio for a little while. You can check out the all-new Expedition Cargo e-bike from Lectric by visiting lectricebikes.com to learn more about that Expedition Cargo e-bike and all the other sweet models Lectric has to offer. And if you're wondering, okay, so how's that spelled? Well, it's LECTRIC ebikes.com. Again, it's like they took the E from the front of electric, moved it to bikes, and then you get electric e-bikes. So LECTRIC, ebikes.com. Head there, check out these bikes. They're so much fun. Oh man, it was a joy to get to ride. And thank you, Electric E-Bikes, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, back to the show. Rosemary Orchard, what's next in terms of preparedness?
Well, of course, one of those other things that you should be looking at is just a general personal safety guide. Now, Apple actually has an official personal safety guide on their website that they recommend. It's also linked in the Tips app, which I should sort of give a little bit of credit to for today's show. And that button is not working over there. So I'll just click the one over here for my phone so that I can actually show folks that the Tips app right here on my iPhone is, or wherever it is, it's hiding from me now, obviously offers a lot of information. But if you pop into the collections, there is one there under Get Started for Be Prepared. And if you tap on Protect Against Technology Misuse, then the personal safety guide is linked here so that you can get to that. We'll also put a link to it in the show notes. But this goes through making sure that you have set everything up to be secure for you and all of your devices, not just your iPhone or your iPad, but also things like your Mac and everything else, so that you can make sure that everything's there. So it'll cover, making sure you've got passwords set up, if you've got encryption on your hard drives, and all of those other things, so that you can, share things with the people who need stuff shared with them, and maybe don't share your location with everybody else. So if I needed to share my location with Mikah, then I could share my location for an hour or 24 hours, well, until the end of the day, rather than just permanently, which is really useful if you are, visiting some friends and you want people to be able to find out where you are, but they don't necessarily need to be able to follow you forever.
Beautiful. Yeah, checking out sort of all the features that are available. And where was that screenshot from that you showed me? Because I liked that page that had all of the different features listed. It was kind of saying, hey, this is what all is available.
Yeah, that is right in the Tips app, the Be Prepared section, with the reviewing your legacy contact, calling for help after a crash, and texting for help when you don't have mobile service, which is, of course, something you can do using the Emergency SOS feature built into iOS, iPhone 14, if you've got, if you're in a supported region. There's a lot of useful information in the Tips app, and I definitely recommend checking it out. It does send quite a few notifications, so you may want to disable those, but it's also got things like user guides for your phone, your watch, HomePods, AirPods, etc. And, you can always go in and check out some health and fitness things, maybe figure out how to change your activity goals, something that maybe you haven't done in a while. And if you are overachieving or underachieving, it might be time to revisit.
Absolutely. So yes, check out the Tips app. We'll also include a link in the show notes in case you deleted it at some point. I know I definitely turned off notifications for it, but it's great that there are those little guides in there that can really help you make the most, again, of your devices. In between watching our show, we don't care if you check out the Tips app. That's okay.
Yes.
All right. Moving along to the news now. It's time to talk about the news. First, it's pretty exciting that Apple continues to improve upon its Apple Maps app. And according to 9 to 5 Mac, the company is working on rebuilt Apple Maps in some Central European countries. Austria, Croatia, is it Czechia, Hungary, Poland, and Slovenia.
Yeah, Czechia, also sometimes known as Czechoslovakia. So there's rebuilt maps coming for some of these countries, which is really good. There haven't been that many problems that I've personally encountered, and I did live in Austria for quite a while. But it's always good to know that Apple are working on, making these things even better than they have been previously. And sometimes this may just be an extension of something that's already rolled out elsewhere. But in this particular case, these countries come first, which is a little change from, it always being California first. It's always fun seeing Apple Park in a map, but it isn't that useful for most of us, I don't think.
Yeah, and this is a fascinating quote. It says, this marks the 18th time that Apple has expanded the availability of its new Apple Maps data since it first launched with iOS 12 in 2018. The individual who spotted this change said, and by the way, is a cartographer and is also an Apple Maps expert. And the person said, once expansion number 18 is released for all Apple Maps users, Apple's new map will cover 21.6% of Earth's land area and 11.7% of the global population. So 927 million people worldwide across 32 countries. Interesting stuff. That's still a very small amount of overall, Earth's land, but it's cool that again they keep releasing these expansions. Um, all right. Moving along, since last week, Apple has, in fact, I talked about it on last Thursday's Tech News Weekly. Apple has released into the App Store a little app called Apple Music Classical. And this has been a long time coming. Apple bought a classical music streaming service, and it did it about a year ago. And we've been wondering for that time, when was Apple going to make Prime Phonic, the music streaming service it had purchased, when was it going to sort of re-release what was there as its own app? And we didn't know if that meant that, Apple Music itself was going to have a more expanded classical music section, or if it was going to be its own separate app. Now we know that, yes, Apple Music Classical, as its own app, will come out on March 28th. You can go and pre-download the app. They call it pre-order, but essentially what happens is you tap get, and then it will download whenever it's available on March 28th. And so then it will roll out and you'll have it on your device, but it is its own separate app. Rosemary, can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect with Apple Music Classical?
Yeah, well, Apple Music Classical is going to be included with an Apple Music subscription if you already have one of those. And you may have this through family sharing or Apple One instead of just a direct Apple Music subscription. It's also worth noting if you're a student, you can get Apple Music at half price. So you'll get Apple Music and Apple Music Classical. But essentially, it should be really good, high quality, classical music that is available to stream. So you can pick, specific versions of a piece of music played by a specific artist to listen to, which, especially as there are some pieces that are played very, very differently from different folks or by different folks. So, being able to pick that, and it's got a nice little icon, little red icon with a treble clef on it instead of the standard semitone or pair of semitones, which are on the Apple Music app. But one of those things where I'm going to have to give this a try. I'm very glad that this is included, and the artists are also going to be paid for it. So, there's some details about that, which we can refer to in the iMore article that is linked. But yeah, so folks who are interested should go and download that. And I have to say, it does look very much like the Apple Music app here, looking at these screenshots. I'm guessing, however, this probably won't support Sing, which is a feature that recently came to Apple Music. I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe we can all perform Madame Butterfly in a few weeks.
You will gain access to more than 5 million tracks thanks to that Prime Phonic acquisition. Apple has the world's largest classical music catalog now, and that of course includes lots of albums that are already out there, but then they will have some exclusives. And then I think one of the big things for people who listen to a lot of classical music is the way that searching will work. You can search by composer, by work, by conductor, by catalog number, and then of course, as Rosemary mentioned, that high quality audio up to 192 kilohertz, 24-bit high-res lossless, and also spatial audio with Dolby Atmos for tracks that support it. It's got more and more accurate metadata than you're going to find in many other places. And there's also, I like this, I think this would be the thing that gets me checking it out a lot more, thousands of composer biographies, descriptions of key works. So you get to kind of learn about the music as you're listening to it. and really dig in and figure out what this specific performer was doing at the time. And I just think that part is what makes it magnificent, because as Jason Howell and I were talking about this, we had this realization of like, what we call this these days is a cover. Someone performing someone else's thing is called a cover, but none of us ever think about classical music as being a cover because it was written so that multiple people could perform it. And that, I don't know, there was something that just like clicked in my brain about that I just find fascinating, that at one point music was written to be distributed and played by loads of different people who all are going to do things slightly differently, and how that was sort of the intention from the get-go, versus now where a cover is a celebration of the original work, but it's not the same. As you don't call classical music performances a cover of Bach's original work. So it was just kind of an interesting thing there. Moving along, last but not least, in the news segment, then I found this fascinating. I saw this run by this morning. India is looking to kind of make it so that pre-installed apps have to be able to be removed as part of kind of the setup of the phone. So according to Mac Rumors, under the new rules, smartphone makers will need to include an uninstall option for pre-installed apps, and new models will be checked for compliance by a lab that has been authorized by the Bureau of Indian Standards Agency. We know that many of Apple's apps are able to be removed. At one point, that was not the case. Apple then made it possible for you to remove an app, and they did it kind of thing where it's essentially still on the phone, but it's just hiding in the code kind of. And then, so whenever you go into the App Store and you re-download it, it just sort of makes it available to you again. But this is a whole new thing where India is also saying apps like Messages, Photos, and Phone have to be able to be removed. And that I think is interesting, because that is, Apple has made it so that you can't remove those, because that is the way that you get messages on your phone. But that's mostly US centric, because in other places, people get their messages mostly through apps like WhatsApp, right? And WeChat. Mm-hmm. So I think this is interesting, Rosemary. What's your thought on this?
Yeah, my thought is it's interesting, but I'm a little worried that it could lead to folks ending up like uninstalling the phone app and being unable to call the emergency services. Now, I'm hoping that this has all been thought through, and that, there will still be a way that Apple is allowed to just essentially hide the app from folks. But then if they don't have a suitable app, then it can call the emergency services. Like the same way we talked about earlier with the Emergency SOS, where if you press and hold the volume up and the power button, you can get into that. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm not sure that other apps are necessarily ready to be the primary messaging app and things like that. So I guess we'll find out what happens here. But we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know what a non-default Photos app would look like, to be honest. And I don't know how they would expect that to interact with the camera. If I take a camera and then I open, say, Dropbox as my Photos app, should my photo have been automatically uploaded to Dropbox? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that's weird. Weird. All right, moving along to Shortcuts Corner, which is next. We've got Shortcuts Corner coming up next. It's time for Shortcuts Corner, the part of the show where you write in with your shortcuts requests, and Rosemary Orchard, your shortcuts expert, provides a response. The first Shortcuts Corner request comes from Doug, who writes, I have a shortcut that puts my watch in silent mode for church every Sunday. This week it stopped working. It appears to hang when running the set silent mode on instruction. I have checked online, and others are reporting a similar problem after recent updates. I tried using the set theater mode, and it is doing the same thing. It is able to turn the silent mode off okay. Have you run into this problem? And by the way, here's my pet tax. This is a drawing my artist son did of our cat Starbuck in Photoshop. Thank you for your help, Doug from New Jersey. Oh, wow. Okay. So for the folks who are listening and not watching, this is a really cool photo done in Photoshop where we've got a kitty outside in the grass, looking off to the side, like a brownish golden cat with beautiful green eyes. And it seems to be some clovers in front of the cat. This is a really cool photo, I think, Rosemary.
Yeah, yeah. I have to say, it's always nice seeing artistry from folks as well. If you want to send us a question, you don't have to send us pet tags, and if you don't have a pet, then you're really not required to. But if you want to send us a picture of your pet, it can be an artistic drawing just like this one, which we always love to see all of those different options.
No,
For all of
sorry.
these
If you
things.
want to ask a question on the show, you're going to have to adopt a pet. That's the only. No, I'm just kidding.
I
We're
mean,
just kidding.
if you could adopt a rescue animal, that would be great. I hear there are a lot of greyhounds in need of a good home, so yeah, I'm definitely considering one of those. But anyway,
Ooh.
in the meantime,
Sorry.
back to Doug's question. So, Doug has a shortcut, which I'm going to guess looks rather like the shortcut I'm currently showing on my iPhone, and contains this action: turn silent mode on. And this is specifically a watch app action. Okay, folks, you can't toggle silent mode on the actual phone because that is a physical slider. You can adjust the volume and so on, but that's separate. So, if you're having problems specifically turning silent mode on, Doug, and you found that if you change the on to off, that still works, then I'm going to guess that you are having an issue with the privacy settings of your particular shortcut. It also depends on how you're running this. If you're running it through an automation, there may be something else in there as well. But there are two things I want to double check. First of all, if you tap on the arrow for the further options in turn silent mode on, I would definitely make sure this show when run toggle is off, because these show when run toggles, they basically will pop up on your screen and be like, hey, I did the thing. But depending on how many of those there are, if there are a lot of them in a shortcut, then that can definitely end up causing a problem if there's an automation. The other thing I want to suggest is if you tap on the info bubble at the bottom of any shortcut, and then you go to the privacy tab, okay, if this shortcut that you're looking at is, accessing other applications, okay, so it's not just accepting some input and doing something with it, for example, then then it needs the option to allow the shortcut to access that. So you hopefully have it turned on so that it will allow you to access the watch. And I would also make sure you've got allow running when locked turned on as well. But assuming that these are already turned on, what I want you to do is go ahead and tap the reset privacy option, okay? And then you're going to need to run that shortcut manually. Okay, and then it should pop up. It's being a little bit slow because it's connected to my computer, and then it should ask you to reconfirm the privacy options for that. Mine is being a little bit silly for various reasons, I suspect because it's connected to my Mac at the moment and it's screen sharing and everything. But once you've done that and you run the shortcut again, you should be able to grant the permission for it to access the Watch app once more. And then, fingers crossed, that should be sorted. Of course, I do have a final recommendation, which maybe should have been my first recommendation of, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? If you haven't tried rebooting your phone and your watch, you'll definitely want to do those as well, because that can iron out some kinks when it comes to running shortcuts to automate your watch. So there we go.
I have to say, yes, I was having some issues with Apple Watch detecting my hand washing. It just was not doing it for some reason. It just stopped doing it. And if it did do it, it would do it almost at the very end of me washing my hands. So I just restarted the Apple Watch, just pressed the side button and the digital crown down and just kept holding it until the screen went black and the Apple logo appeared, and that solved it. So sometimes you just need to do a little restart and that takes care of everything. Moving along to Rick. Rick writes in, shortcuts question. Hi, I am getting started with shortcuts and have a shortcut that I think would be useful to me. My problem is I have researched how to create this, but I haven't seen a working example. I tried it on my own, but nothing worked. Here is what I want to do. I go to a location, Monterey, California. When I do, I need a set of alarms on my watch for 12:25 p.m., 12:55 p.m., 1:25 p.m., 1:55 p.m., 2:25 p.m., 2:55 p.m., 12:35, alarm 5 minutes before the hour and the half hour until 2:50. So basically, he is explaining what the alarms are. So from 12:35, needs an alarm every 5 minutes before the hour and the half hour until 2:55 p.m. This seems easy, but I have found it not so. Any help would be appreciated. I have watched the show since it was iPhone Today. Thank you, Rick. So, setting up multiple alarms based on a location. Rosemary, do you have any advice?
Yes. So first of all, I am going to go with my usual recommendation of when you make a personal automation, make a shortcut and run the shortcut in this, because this way, if you have a problem with your shortcut, you can share your shortcut with people and it's not stuck in the automation. Also, if you wipe your phone or set up a new device at some point, then you don't lose it. So create a new personal automation and you can use when you arrive and then you'll choose that specific location. You can even limit it to a time range, by the way, Rick. So any folks who are looking to do something like when I arrive at work, but only between 9 and 11 a.m. Monday to Friday, you can do that. So once you've done that, you'll just need the run shortcut action. I'm not going to continue going through and creating that because I'd have to choose a location and all sorts of things. And then we just want to create a new shortcut. Okay, so very simple with what we're going to do here. There's two options that we could do. You could start with a list, okay, and you could create a list using a list action, okay, and you could just type in 12, 25, okay, and then you would do 12:55 and so on and so forth. And you could just add as many of these as you wanted. Or we can do maths. And it's entirely up to you which you prefer to do. I think I'm probably going to stick with the list option, just because this way you can see all of those. And then what we need to do is we need to repeat with each of these. Okay, so because we have a list, we're going to repeat with each of them. If you were doing maths, okay, then you would do 12:30, okay, to 3 o'clock. And calculate how many of those you needed. And then you just do a repeat action inside of that and adjust the date. It's a little more complicated, which is why I've gone for the repeat with each, because then you've got a nice simple example where you can see the times. Okay, and then what we need to do is we need to add an alarm. Now, you may be thinking, wait, but this is going to create an alarm on my phone. It is, but this is going to be able to be turned off on your watch. So what we can do then is create an alarm. And in the time, you see it's auto-populated this repeat item for us, and that's great. And now we get to do the magic bit, which is give the alarm a name. And so I'm going to call this Rick's alarm, and then I will know if this goes off tomorrow exactly why this is going off. And I've spelled Rick's name wrong. I apologize for that, Rick. There's an extra K in there that shouldn't be there. But there we go. And so then what you do is when you run your shortcut, it will create some alarms. Now, as you can see, it's popping up and showing me those. We probably don't want that. So just like we did in the last one, press on that triangle to expand the action and toggle off show when run. There are also options for repeats in here, but repeating, as you can see, it's day of the week rather than every 30 minutes. And so we don't want that. So this is honestly what I would do. It's very simple. But then if I pop over to the alarms app, which I'm just going to do by actually opening the timer from the control center, and I can go into alarms, you'll see I apparently have a lot of alarms here, but 12:25 and 12:55, I can see that I have Rick's alarm. Now I'm just going to swipe to delete those because I don't actually want my phone to go off tomorrow and confuse me. But that's how I would do that. So fingers crossed that works for you, Rick. And thanks for watching the show.
All right, moving right along to the feedback and questions segment. Kenny has written in. Kenny says, Mikah and Rosemary, thank you as always for the great show you produce. I always learn a lot. My question is about creating or finding an Apple Watch complication for use when I fly overseas. I would like to create a watch face to use when I am flying. I am an Air Force pilot, and when we operate away from home, everything we do runs on the UTC clock, the same as Greenwich Mean Time. I have found an app that gives a reliable UTC complication, but we also schedule missions using the Julian calendar, days 1 through 365. While I can find apps that show me the Julian day on a complication, I can't find one that changes the calendar day based on the UTC time zone. I don't want the calendar to change at midnight based on my location. I want it tied to UTC. Is there a way to create such a complication? Regardless, thanks again. And I have included pet tax. Here is my Labradoodle Bernie, short for Bernoulli. That's
Oh,
the glasses. For folks who are listening in, it is a typically large-sized Labradoodle who is this beautiful golden brown color. And
yeah.
Bernie is wearing these hilarious sort of cat eye sunglasses and is glancing up at the camera, looking ever so adorable while laying on a rug. Hello, Bernie. I want to give you a big hug. And that is such a pretty dog. All right,
Definitely.
let's talk about this. So Kenny is after a complication for the watch that is a little, if I may say, complicated. Yes.
Yeah. So it's one of these things where, the Julian date, just having essentially the day of the year is something it's used a lot in astronomy. And I understand, obviously, it's also used for flights, but I can understand why a lot of other people wouldn't use it. So my first thought was honestly Watchsmith by David Smith. But I asked him, and he said that, he doesn't actually have a complication for that. That's not something that's available. And so, I still want to recommend Watchsmith as a great, complication creation app for your Apple Watch, especially because it can change what it shows you at different times of day for you. But it's a bit more complicated than something that Watchsmith can handle. So I had an idea, Micah, and you might be willing to call me crazy for this, and I'm totally okay with that if you do. But I actually thought that maybe we could use Cheat Sheet and shortcuts for this, because Cheat Sheet is a great app for it's available on iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple Watch, and it can show you data, and you can save data and just show it in certain places, such as an Apple Watch complication. And shortcuts can format a date. So I figured that has to be something that's possible. But I don't know, maybe if I'm thinking too far outside the box, it's obviously going to be a little difficult to get this updated exactly at the right time, because an automation on your phone is going to run based on the time zone that your phone is in. So either you're going to need multiple automations, or maybe Kenny already has something that he always does at the start of a flight. In which case he could, run this as part of that as an automation. But maybe I'm being crazy, Micah. Maybe not.
No, I don't think that it is. I mean, the fact is, this is a little bit complicated. It's not. It's not within the realm of what someone would typically need. So unfortunately, oftentimes we do have to come up with customized solutions, right? If you were doing something that exists outside of the typical method of doing things, then there isn't necessarily a developer who's out there making it possible. And unfortunately, this is one of those cases where it falls into that. So I don't think that your suggestion is a bad idea. It's just a lot more involved for sure. And but it may be, Kenny would be fine with doing it that way, right?
Yes, exactly. And that was hopefully, my thought that Kenny might be okay with this. So I'm going to include an example for this in the show notes, so that it can update a cheat sheet, and then you can just keep the same cheat sheet in a complication or a widget or whatever. But as far as formatting dates go, there's a lot of formats available, and if you tap on the format date action in shortcuts, and if you tap on the sort of icon in the top left and then go to show info on that, then it even has the URL of where you can find how to format all the dates. So I figured, this seemed like a good alternative in lieu of an app that we know of, but also maybe our listeners know something that they can tell us, where they know somebody who's actually made an app that does this, or they know somebody else who needs this and found, the answer somewhere else.
Yes. Please, listeners, if you're out there, we know you're out there, but if you're out there and you have an answer for something that works, please let us know. We'd love to hear what you suggest. All right. With that, I believe it is time to move on to the final segment of the show. It's time for App Caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our heads to honor our app and gadget picks of the week. These are the apps and or gadgets we are using now that we want to share with all of you. It could also be apps and gadgets we've been using for a long time, but haven't had a chance to talk about them on the show. And in doing so, we also put things on our heads and use that as a means of saying, hey, we are honoring you, app or gadget pick. So without further ado, Rosemary Orchard, tell us about the cap atop your head, and then tell us about your app or gadget pick of the week.
Well, so I've gone a little off-piste today, Micah, and I'm actually having a little trouble breathing, so I'm just going to have to potentially hold on to this for a moment. I am wearing a red nose. I'm not just wearing any red nose. I am wearing a red nose, which is actually made or designed, at the very least, by Johnny Ive. And Red Nose Day is an event that we have every 2 years here in the UK, and it's on March 17th this year. So I kind of had to choose St. Patrick's Day, Red Nose Day. So I've gone with Red Nose Day this week, and I'll save St. Patrick's Day for next week. So I'm wearing a red nose. Yay, go charity. And yeah, you can buy one of these over here in the UK for about £2.50. And Micah, I may have grabbed an extra one for you while I was out looking at all these things.
Yes. Oh my God, thank you.
So my app cap for today is an app we've talked about on the show before. It's one of my favorite apps to recommend when it comes to cooking. I'm just going to quickly take this nose off because I'm having a little trouble breathing. It's surprisingly it's strong, the grip on this. But this is Crouton. Now, one of the things that Crouton has recently added, which I thought made it worth being my app cap this week, is a Discover section. So if you sign up for an optional in-app subscription with Crouton, then you can actually have a Discover section where it will go out and find recipes for you. And not only will it find recipes for you, and I'm just going to pop into the Crouton Discover section to show folks what this is like. It makes recommendations essentially and can then also use AI to import from cookbooks. And of course, you get a nice little special edition icon, which is, of course, the icon that I'm using for Crouton. And I just thought that this was a really great idea because now in the Discover section, so there are a number of options that come by default. So Bon Appetit, Budget Bites, Minimalist Bakers, and I believe Recipe Tin Eats were some of the defaults. But then I've been able to just go and add based on, the URL of the website, some other sites as well. So I've got Pinch of Nom in here, BBC Good Food, Spoonful of Kindness. And then I can just, browse through and I can see recipes here and go, ooh, you know what? That actually sounds really good. And I can tap to download it. I can add some tags if I want to, and then stick it straight into a folder. And it will just allow me to quickly, browse through recipes and download them and save them. Without having to go out and search for them and more. And, I can easily add a feed URL if I want to get more. And there's just, the developer of Crouton is one of those developers who just really wants to make a great app. And it really shows here. There's everything from household sharing to planning groceries to, putting everything in folders. There's even smart folders. So I've been experimenting with some vegan recipes recently. So I added a smart folder for vegan and vegetarian. And I've not gone through and tagged my recipes yet, but I really should so that they automatically populate into there. But yeah, I just really love the fact that, you've got all of these options. You can even have weather in the meal planning, Micah. Like, who doesn't want to know? By the way, it's actually going to be really hot on that day that you're planning on doing that really involved meal. Maybe you want a salad instead. It's just the little touches that count.
Yeah, I think Crouton is such a fantastic app, and the developer is fantastic and always on top. I really like Crouton, and everyone should go and get it for sure.
Yes, definitely agreed.
Oh. All right. So the cap atop my head, it is a sort of pink and blue tie-dye hat. It's a bucket hat, and it's from the ACLU. It says Protect Trans Youth, and it has a yellow smiley face, but it's sort of frowning and like, hey, don't mess with me kind of thing. So the device I'm actually talking about today, it's not an app. Well, it's both an app and a device, is something that I think is just perfect for family. It is called the Nix Play photo frame. So there are lots of companies out there who are making photo frames, the sort of digital photo frames that you can add images to. But the companies that are making them are often they're low quality frames. They have all sorts of connectivity issues. They are not high quality hardware. I mean, there's a bunch that is at issue. But Nix Play is not that. Nixplay makes makes some of the best photo frames I've ever seen and some of the best software to manage these photo frames. One of the features that I really love is it's called a preload feature. And essentially what you can do is you can add a bunch of photos to the photo frame before it ever gets to your family. And then so when, your uncle sets it up or whomever you're giving it to sets it up, it's already got the photos on there whenever they get everything loaded and ready to go. It also has a feature where you can have an email. And so people can send photos to that email and they'll show up on the frame. So you get this for a family member and then you can add photos to it from an email or the app itself. And so I have that is what I wanted to show. I have my iPhone here with the app, and you can see I've got a playlist here. You can change what playlist you want to manage. So you can have multiple playlists, and then it's as simple as going in and adding photos to that playlist. And then you can set it to shuffle. You can change the way that the photos are displayed. So there are built-in filters and things like that as well. So I can crop, I can make adjustments, I can do all sorts of things to get these photos just how I want them. It's a touchscreen display, so you can sort of move on to a photo or you can pause it on a specific photo. There's a photo of one of my dogs just smiling so big. Kind of hard to see because of the reflection, but it's a very bright display. It's a very high resolution display, which I quite like. And I also like that the UI gets out of the way. So at any time you can tell it, hey, I don't want to see anything on the screen except for the photos. Or you can say, I really like this photo, and then it'll show up more. It also has built-in features for scheduling. So I can go in and let me try to set this down, managing a bunch all at once. But on the app, I can go in and say, hey, I want this frame to turn off after a certain period of time. So I've got a sleep schedule set up at 20 hours, then it goes to sleep and it wakes up again at 7 in the morning. It's also got an activity sensor. So after 10 minutes of it not seeing any movement in the space, then it will go ahead and go to sleep. And then when the frame goes to sleep, you can have it turn off the screen or just show a clock, which I didn't realize. So I'm going to do that now. And then when the frame wakes up, you could choose what it does, which is show current playlist. You'll see here, I've got clock turned off. I've got captions turned off. I've got connectivity status turned off because I don't want anything to show up on the frame itself. Then if you want to, you can do videos on there as well. So you'll see I've got volume settings at the bottom. This is currently set with a specific transition. You can change how the photos display. You can change how long they're on the screen. And then there are a bunch of different options. I like crossfade. It's simple, but you can do all sorts of things. I might try reveal just to see how that looks. And then it quickly updates. You can add other people to the display, up to 20 members, and then they can use the app to be able to send photos to the frame. And if you don't want to do it that way, then again, as I mentioned, you can use an email. You can also use the prints option. So once you start to see these photos, you may go, oh, actually, I want to turn that into a print. So Nixplay has a built-in print feature, and then activity shows like when people are sending photos to it. They start at about $100, which may sound kind of expensive, but what you get with that is not only a high quality touchscreen display and plenty of space to show lots of photos, but you also get this really well-designed and privacy-focused system that lets you, set up these photos. So think about how you are giving family members the opportunity to see a bunch of photos from their kids or from their grandkids or what have you all together. That's what I think is amazing. So that's why I have to give credit where credit is due on the Nixplay smart photo frame. Again, they have multiple options. They've got like these ultra resolution displays, which are 2K. The one that we're showing there, that's the 10.1 inch screen that I have. But yes, they have multiple sizes. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you can hang it on the wall, or you can use the included stand, which has an adjustable feature to kind of change the tilt of the screen of the frame. And I've got this normally right now, it's obviously in my studio, so I could show it on screen, but I've got this sitting in my kitchen and it's gorgeous there. Even right next to a window, it's still, the screen is bright enough to where I don't have to worry about it being too dark. It's beautiful. So yeah, that is the Nix Play Smart Photo Frame. And I can't say enough good about the quality of the display and the quality of the software. I've used a few of these different systems that are, give your family member a bunch of photos to see in one place, and the screen itself is often pixelated and the too reflective and all of these other things that kind of make it not look great and make it a little too obvious that it's a digital screen. What I love about this one is how it is beautiful to look at, easy to use, and I think easy for anyone to set up for a family member or for themselves. So yeah, you might check that out at Nix Play. All right. With that, we have reached the end of this episode of iOS Today. All that's left is to tell you how you can get in touch with us and how you can watch the show. So if you have an email that you'd like to send, if you have feedback, requests, concerns, etc., send those to iostoday@twit.tv, iostoday@twit.tv, or you can tweet at us with the hashtag AskIOSToday or Mastodon at us with the, just send it to iostoday@twit.social. We record the show every Tuesday around about 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, 1600 UTC at, actually that UTC time might change because of daylight saving time. But anyway, definitely 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. By going to twit.tv/live, you can watch us record it live, or you can watch after the fact at twit.tv/iOS. That is where you go to subscribe to the show or follow the show. Twit.tv/iOS. There you will see that we've got multiple formats to subscribe in audio or video. You click subscribe to audio, you click subscribe to video, you choose the platform you want to use. That's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all those different places. We try to be everywhere so that you can get it no matter what platform you're using. And we'd love for you to become a regular subscriber of the show, truly and sincerely. If you want to get all of our shows ad-free, well, there's a way for you to do that. It's called Club Twit. For $7 a month, you can get every single Twit show with no ads. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, and access to the members-only Discord server. How do you get all that stuff? By going to twit.tv/clubtwit. Prices start at $7 a month or $84 a year. And as I said, you get so much greatness for that. All of the Twitch shows, it's just content, no ads. That bonus feed that has some of the events that we do, and then access to the Discord server. That's where you go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members. And many of us here at Twitter there paying attention. One of the most active channels is the iOS Today channel, and Rosemary's regularly there too, offering suggestions and occasionally finding inspiration for new shows. You may have heard I said starting at $7. That's because some folks said, hey, we'd like to pay you more because you are regularly adding value. And so we said, yeah, you can do that. So you hop in, you can choose $7 or you can go up from there. And I think part of the reason is because we're always adding new great stuff. We've got the Untitled Linux Show, which is a show all about Linux. We've got Paul Thurrott's Hands on Windows, which is a short format show with Windows tips and tricks. We've got my show, Hands on Mac, which is a short format show all about iOS and other Apple tips and tricks, the Mac, iPhone, iPad, etc. And we have recently launched Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson, woo, 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 which is a return to Scott Wilkinson's show of all home theater stuff you need to know, stuff you didn't know you needed to know, stuff you knew you needed to know but didn't know, and everything in between. Plus that holly jolly laugh of Scott Wilkinson. I mean, how could you not want that? All available as part of Club Twit, twit.tv/clubtwit. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where should they go to do so?
Well, if folks go to rosemaryorchard.com, it has links to all the places that I am on the internet. Other than that, as you mentioned, Mikah, I am in the iOS Today Twit Discord, hanging out there. And other than that, you can find me on Mastodon, Rosemary at snailsit.social. And other than that, hanging out on the internet. What about you, Mikah?
You can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. I'd love for you to follow along and, send a message sometime, ask questions, etc. Happy to get that feedback and respond when I'm able to. Folks, thank you for tuning into this episode of iOS Today. I hope you feel prepared and ready to take on the world. Maybe you feel a little bit safer. And we can't wait to talk to you next week for another episode of iOS Today. Goodbye.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, a bunch of game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. Hope to see you there.